Timeliness is so crucial in any big project. For journalists, you break a story. I mean, you're ahead of everybody else. You put a story out there that no one else has done. Woodward and Bernstein absolutely broke the Watergate story. Seymour Hersh broke the My Lai story. And since it was 15 years before the Boston Globe, it's certainly fair to say I broke the Catholic Church story.
It is a scandal that sent shockwaves from Boston to Rome.
The Boston Globe uncovered a massive sex abuse scandal and cover-up within a local Catholic church.
Defrocked priest John Dagan is accused of molesting and raping more than 100 boys, some as young as 4 years old.
He should go to prison, that's what I think.
It was a report that shook the world.
I thought this story had to be told. It was the right time to tell it.
And the Oscar goes to Spotlight.
So, the story began 15 or 20 years before the Globe coverage, not on the national radar screen. It was 1984.
Thank you very much.
Nobody steps on a church in my town!
Introducing Macintosh, all-you-can-eat fried shrimp.
I remember my Mexican grandmothers were so happy in church with me. They believed in a certain joy in faith. So I had a very benevolent sense of the church. And then later I got to Jesuit high school that stresses the Socratic method, where a question leads to answer, answer leads to question. And with each answer comes a stronger foundation to branch out with more questions. I never set out to become a journalist. I thought then I would write a novel. In the meantime, was earning a living as a freelance, and I just sort of became a reluctant muckraker. I started doing investigative reporting. Gilbert Gothée was a priest in the Lafayette Diocese, was ordained. He had been molesting children for a number of years, and they kept moving him to different parishes until finally one parent went to the district attorney, and by chance I got access to depositions about this pedophile priest. I will never forget sitting in that law office in New Orleans with the shades open in the late afternoon and the light coming in, powdering these deposition pages, and reading the bishop explain why he had allowed Father Gothée to go from one parish to another back in circulation. And I said, this is a priest molesting kids. I had just become a father for the first time. And I was just so appalled by it, and how much the bishop knew about this man's history and had kept recycling him. Nuns gave me textured, well-detailed interviews when a child would be called out of class to go see Father Gothée. They knew exactly what he was doing and told the bishop and got nowhere. I'm here chronicling this darkness, this evil that has beset the oldest church in Christendom, my church. The case had been building up. This is not about one sick man who has committed crimes against children. This is about a sick hierarchy that's been covering up. This is like Watergate.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
For two young reporters outside the inner circle of the newsroom to get this kind of information that would cause a president of the United States to resign, that was quite a remarkable feat. And I kept thinking of the line by Senator Howard Baker of Tennessee, a Republican, who said, I just want to know what
did the president know, and when did he know it?
My mother, the conversations with my mother, we went over there one Sunday night for dinner, and she started asking me all these questions. Well, what did the bishop know? And I said, look, off the record. He knew everything. And she said, it has to come out. And my grandmother was sitting next to her, and she says, it absolutely has to come out. I had a contact at the Washington Post. They didn't want to go near it. Rolling Stone didn't want it. The Nation, I think you know, the New York Times Magazine. Nobody wanted this thing. Maybe I'm not doing it the right way. I've got information on something happening here, but I can't believe this is the only place that this has happened. Someone had told me about National Catholic Reporter, and I got through the editor, Tom Fox. He started talking about cases they had learned about in other parts of the country, and my light bulb went off. I thought, aha, this isn't just in the swamps of Louisiana. Whoa, here's the stuff. The piece ran in 3 parts in 1985 with a joint assignment for National Catholic Reporter and the Times of Acadiana.
You're 19, Denton, and you're from Abbeville, Louisiana. In your early teens, you were molested and sodomized by Father Gilbert Gothay. Father Gothay.
To me, it was a political story. From the outset, it was a story of a cover-up.
The bishop engaged really in a systematic cover-up, and that cover-up has been replicated across the country. A number of priests I've interviewed believe very strongly, and I agree, that pedophilia in the clergy has really become the Watergate of the Catholic Church.
This was 1988, and I became an article machine. It was sort of like a flare, if you will. Gradually, I realized that, okay, now what? Where do I go with this?
Lead Us Not Into Temptation. It's just out in paperback. Jason Berry.
It's called Lead Us Not Into Temptation. It took 6.5 years, and I kept getting rejections from publishers. It was an uphill push. I wrote that book as a freelance writer. I kept that reporting alive. When the book came out in 1992, the presidential primary was moving into high gear. The media just moved on. By that time, I was in severe financial straits. Credit card didn't work. And my wife, Lisa, had our second child, Ariel, who had Down syndrome and congestive heart failure. And I knew that Ariel would have a hard road. She had open heart surgery at 2.5. I lost a great deal of working time because of my child's needs.
When the bishops say that life in the womb is sacred, and at the same time, for years have been playing musical chairs with pedophiles, something doesn't wash.
I would go off to these talk shows, and I'd go on Donahue or Oprah, and say my piece. Nobody ever asked me, what does this do to you as a Catholic? And I was in a free fall, spiritually, wondering what to believe. I wondered, what was the Pope doing? Why weren't there powerful statements coming out of the Vatican? Question leads to answer, answer leads to question. Why is this continuing to happen?
From 15 to 17.
From 15 to 17 years old.
Testimony was there, and the news media ignored the story.
The priest admitted to the sexual abuse. The priest was still allowed to stay a priest. Then the abuse continued. I continued to be sexually abused.
In other news.
In other news.
In other news.
But the overriding concern in my life was my daughter, Ariel. That is where I was focused. I thought, okay, I've said my piece, 10 years of my life, and the media lost interest. If the church isn't going to change, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life trying to lead the mule to water. I just had one prayer for years. Let my little girl live. Please let her live. Who understands why we suffer? I've never found the answer to that. But to me, the narrative of life has to have some kind of resolution.
Wake of a Boston Globe spotlight investigation.
Tidningen Boston Globe som drivit fram det mesta
uncovered a massive sex abuse scandal.
It is a scandal that sent shockwaves from Boston to Rome.
A recent Globe Spotlight report uncovered documents supporting the allegations.
In Boston today, the Catholic Church has given law enforcement the names of 22 more priests who were suspected of sexually abusing children.
Geoghegan abused 7 boys in her family.
While top church officials knew.
Two-time Academy Award nominee Mark Ruffalo plays Mike Resendiz.
And I thought, wow, if the church had put him in charge of altar boys after knowing that he'd been abusing children for 30 years, we're onto something very, very seriously wrong.
Resendiz called me. He said, oh, I'm in Toronto on the set. What kind of set are you on? He said, oh, they're making a movie of the Spotlight. I said, what do you need from me? He said, Jason, we got this scene with a survivor, and the actor holds up your book and says your book.
Have you read Jason Berry's book? He wrote about the Gauthe case in Louisiana.
That's G.
G-A-U-T-H-E.
It was a good film. It deserved the Academy Award. They deserved the Pulitzer Prize. What can I tell you? Look, I don't feel any proprietary ownership of this story. Rather the opposite. The meaning for me is knowing I played some small role and to treat these narratives with the respect that the victims deserve. The impact that I had on other journalists, my relationships with survivors, with renegade priests, with radical nuns, and I mean radical in the best sense. Roots, first things, human justice. I wouldn't trade that for a barrel of money or high prizes. I do think Pope Francis is a historic figure and a reformer. I think it's a start. I go to church because I feel closer to my deceased daughter. My little girl loved going to church. And she was maybe the most loving human being I've ever known. Paul to the Corinthians, he says, "For our boast is this, the testimony of our conscience, that we have behaved in the world to be decent